Well Rooted is brought to you by Gerard and Associates CPAs. With locations throughout Los Angeles, Gerard and Associates has been guiding entrepreneurs and creatives towards realizing their dreams for over 20 years. Discover how they can support your vision at gerardcpa.com. Hey, it's Haneen, and I'm back with another episode of Well Rooted. On today's episode, we sit down and speak with Lauren Harb. Lauren is the founder of Harem Modern, and we talk a lot about her Palestinian identity, her Arab-American upbringing, and how that all came into play into her entrepreneurial journey. This is a really fun episode. I'm really excited for you guys to hear it today. So please welcome Lauren onto Well Rooted. We are here today with Lauren Harb. She is the founder of Harem Modern. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. And like we had her like drive on the 405 to come see us. That is not an
deal.
easy feat, you guys. That's like real gets real.
Commitment.
That is real commitment. Okay, you need to tell us and tell the audience about Harem Modern.
Okay, so I own a Moroccan rug company. I import rugs from Morocco. We ship them all over the world. Really kind of rare, unique, one-of-a-kind pieces. We have really high-quality pieces. We have vintage and antique pieces, and I just kind of try to source them based on what is interesting to my eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're really gorgeous. Like I
Thank
have
you.
window shopped on your website more times than I can count. And I might have to have you come to my house one day and just like
Honestly, I
pick.
would love to do that.
That would be amazing, honestly.
This is one of my favorite things to do with customers.
Okay.
Actually, it's like have them send me pictures and, measurements and just kind of use my eye and get feedback and talk about like, do you have kids? Do you have pets? What are your needs? And help them figure out
Mm.
exactly what they want. And if you're in
Yeah.
the neighborhood, I'm happy to come to
Oh, that
you.
would be amazing,
Yeah.
actually, because you also have a huge like warehouse here, right?
No, actually, so all of our rugs ship from
Straight from
Morocco.
Morocco. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
for a while I was kind of storing some of them in the second bedroom in my home,
Mhm.
but that just was taking up a lot of space and
Yeah.
meant strangers were coming to my house, and so we're moving away from that model.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love that. So how are you able to source these rugs?
So I built connections with several partners in Morocco, cooperatives, and also people like collectors, essentially.
Hmm.
And so I have, a few different partners, and basically I either go there and visit, or I tell them what I'm looking for, and they send me pictures, and I'm like, that one, we want that.
Oh, perfect. So you're basically curating
Yes,
from the artisans themselves.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome because I think a lot of times, I think Moroccan style is really big here, especially in LA. And,
Yeah.
you can go to a lot of different places to sort of find those types of items and those like really interesting objects or rugs.
Mm,
But you don't really know where the actual source is, right? That you're getting them
yeah.
from. And there's something to be said about sourcing it straight from the artisans themselves.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that something that's always been important to you?
Super important to me. I think first of all, there are also a lot of Moroccan style rugs that you'll see. Like some
Mm-hmm.
of the bigger brands, know how to imitate the sort of classic Moroccan look. And a lot of those are machine made. So I think it was really important to me to have handmade, really beautiful textiles,
Mm-hmm.
and also to be directly supporting the makers, the artisans, the ones with the vision.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially now more than ever. I think people are just a lot more conscious of where their money is going
Mm,
and I think there's something to be said about authenticity as well,
yeah.
right? I feel like people in general just want like that special item and they want it to have
Yes.
meaning, especially when it's in their home.
That's so true. Like the rugs are an investment. It's an
Hmm.
investment piece. It's really like buying a piece of art that you're going to use and hopefully it's going to last you a lifetime or as long as you want it to. And so I think when there's a story behind it, it makes it so much more special. And when you know that like there's no other piece like this, there's just one like this because it was made by hand. Somebody had a vision or an idea. And even if somebody said, okay, I want it just like that, the second one is not going to look exactly like that. It's going to be slightly different. And so I think, people want to be able to say, this is a special thing I have that nobody else has. And here's the story.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I feel like that's a trend we're seeing in general, even with clothing. I think
Mm,
vintage is just, it's just out there. Everyone's talking about it. It's all over TikTok.
yeah,
People want to source those really unique, cool pieces. And I don't see why like the home would be any different, right? Because it's
yeah,
where you spend most of your time.
right.
You want it to be special. So, yeah, it's every piece really is beautiful. And like you have the cutest pillows and poofs
Thank you.
too.
I love our pillow and
The
poof
pillows are
selection. Thank you.
adorable. And yeah, as you mentioned
Thank you.
earlier, like there's a lot of that sort of Moroccan style being
Yes.
imitated across the board. We see it with
Yeah.
mass retailers.
Yeah.
So, what would be the advantage of buying from Harem Modern
Mm,
versus, something that looks very similar at Crate and Barrel or
yes. I love
another
that
major
question.
retailer?
I mean, first of all, I think if it's important to you to support a small business, then as opposed to one of those larger retailers, then that's the first advantage is, it's just me. I'm a one woman show. And then, of course, all of the artisans in Morocco and my partners there. But you're really supporting kind of on more of like an individual and community level than you are a bigger brand.
Mm.
And then I think you also get something, like I said before, that nobody else has. So those pillows and poofs that you see are made from scraps from old rugs. And so it's one of
Wow.
the ways that they just don't let anything go to waste. And I think most of the time that's not what you're going to see if you go to one of those larger retailers. They're manufacturing the material from scratch to make the pillow or the poof, and
Hmm.
it's probably going to be machine made. Whereas this is like every piece of the rug gets used. So sometimes, let's say there's an 8 by 10 rug and somebody needs it to be 7 by 9. And so we're able to trim it. And so we can
Okay.
cut it down. And we do this sometimes for people whenever the construction allows. That extra trim is probably going to get turned into something usable. So it's also just sort of environmentally friendly.
Yeah. And I think that's another key factor. Like, I'm really glad you mentioned that. I think a
Mm,
lot of people are also looking into that more than ever as well.
yeah.
And I mean, all of that is connected, right? Like serving the
Hmm.
local artisans, as you said, serving that community, our environment. I mean, everyone is just in general is more conscious of all of these small details that are so overlooked when you go to a larger manufacturer.
Totally.
And it's just, I think, very relaxing and comforting to know that you are investing in a piece. They
Yeah.
are investment worthy pieces. And it's nice to invest
Yeah.
in a piece that you can sort of know, is coming from a good place.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so important these days. I mean, we're constantly like checking everything, right? We need
Yeah.
to see where our money is going. And just to know
Yeah.
that it's serving that community is really ideal for the consumer.
Yes.
Where did this idea come from to start Harem Modern?
Okay. This is a little bit of a self-disclosure about what an impulsive shopper I can be, but I was on a trip, I think in 2016, my first trip to Morocco, and I think anytime you go to Morocco for the first time, there's just this sense that you're going to shop and you're going to
Mhm.
shop for home stuff and rugs. And so I went in like really determined, and at the time I lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I had a living room and a bedroom in terms of spaces for rugs. I came home with 7 rugs because I just sort of got too excited, haggled a little too hard.
Yeah.
And I was holding on to them like one day I'll move to a bigger space. And after a couple years, that dream hadn't come to fruition yet. And I was like, okay, I think I need to sell some of these. I was already kind of selling some small home goods and like lifestyle stuff. And
Mhm.
so I just naturally transitioned. I asked a couple people if they knew anyone that wanted a rug. Next thing you know, I'm like, got rugs in the trunk of my car in a parking lot and literally, and I'm selling them to a
Like,
couple, I think, that said they did real estate staging. And they're like, can you get
mm,
more? And I just didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah. And then, I got in my car. I'm like, okay, how do I get more? And I immediately just kind of reached out to the people I'd gotten the rugs from and just like connected with them and started kind of following the trail back to the artisans. And
that's incredible. Like, so the
yeah,
business kind of fell into your lap in that way.
yeah,
That's awesome. And then, so then you just started going back to those artisans, back to those
yes,
people,
yep,
sourcing more rugs from them.
yeah, yeah. And I wasn't bringing them here because I had no plan for this business. This was a surprise. I already had another full time job. But I would just kind of post them and see if anybody wanted them on Instagram, and it started to go well. But when you're buying from someone on Instagram and they're just posting in stories and they don't have a website, I think people were like, I just want to make sure this is legit.
Right.
So over time, I legitimized, I got a website, and um,
It's a
it's a
process. And
process.
and
Yeah,
it's a learning process as well. And as you said, you're a one
totally.
woman show. To
Yes.
even make it that far on your own is really inspiring, to be
Thank
honest.
you.
What are some lessons you had to sort of learn,
Mm,
especially in those early stages when it kind of, as you said, it wasn't part of your plan, it kind of fell into your lap?
yeah.
Where were the learning curves in that process?
Well, I think the biggest learning curve and the biggest lesson for me was around flexibility.
Hmm.
So I had to really pay attention to like who is the customer that's gravitating to me? What are they looking for? And also how is that changing in different sort of times? Like my COVID customer was a really different customer than before and after. And so I think just adapting very much to what my customer's looking for and what they want, and being willing to kind of like let my business shift to meet the needs of whoever my customer is instead of being really rigid about like, this is my vision, because I think that makes sense for some people, but I didn't go into this with this is my vision
Hmm.
for the business. It was more like people focused, like this makes people really happy, and so I wanted to see what they liked. And so that's kind of been my big lesson is like if something's working, I'm going to lean into it. And
Yeah.
if it's not working, it's okay to shift.
That's a really healthy mindset to have. I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, as you said, remain very rigid for as
Mm,
long as they can because they have a specific vision in mind and they feel like it has to be this way or another. But pivoting is such an important quality to have
mm,
or to be able to execute as a business owner.
yeah,
And so you feel like that's what served you the most so far in your
I think
journey.
so. Yeah. And I expect that that will keep happening because it's like the market changes, what
Hmm.
I source changes. Sometimes I get new partners. I've had partners that just sort of like moved in a different direction and don't really make rugs anymore. So
Hmm.
I just kind of have to be liquid and go with, whatever's working at the time.
I mean, that's such a healthy mindset. I
I
wish
try.
more people would adopt that mindset in general, just to be able to pivot. Um, so another question I had for you
Mm,
that I thought would was really cool because you mentioned earlier, you're like, I love the idea of like getting to help people furnish the home or to style like or choose the right rug, I would say, for their
yeah.
space. If I, for example, wanted to work with you
Yes.
and I just didn't know where to start, I kind of fall in love with everything I see.
Yeah.
How would we begin that process?
So, you could, you know, DM me, you could email me, you could reach out, however,
Mhm,
works for you. And it's always going to be me responding. If you're like writing to customer service, it's me. If you're DMing, it's me.
mhm,
And just, you would introduce, yourself and tell me what you're looking for. And even if you don't know, if you're like, hey, I have this space, I don't know what I need, I like everything, where do I start? Then, okay, I want to know what room you need a rug for. What are the measurements of that room? Do you have any pictures of that room?
mhm,
Do you have any pictures of inspiration you like? Are there rugs you've seen on the Harem Modern website that you're drawn to? So I can start to get a sense of your style.
mhm,
Um, and then kind of lifestyle things. Like I said, like, do you have pets? Do you have kids? Like, when someone has a really kind of active household, I tend to recommend patterned rugs or,
mm.
rugs that are going to hide discoloration, from inevitable
Yeah, it is
stains or.
inevitable. Yeah.
So just kind of like addressing all of your needs. And this part is so fun for me. It's like a service that I like to provide as part of the purchase. I almost find that doing that is more exciting than just waking up and seeing there's a sale
Mhm.
because I got to be a part of it. And honestly, if we go through all of that and you're like, I just didn't find, I think, anything that feels quite right, that's okay. I can either try to source something. That's something people don't always know. If you don't see it on the website, I can usually source it.
Mhm.
Um, I can custom make it for you, or we can just kind of wait and see, like, does something else start to become clear for you over time? There's no
Right.
pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have to take you up on that.
Yeah, please
The
do.
more
I'm
I'm
happy
hearing
to
about this,
help.
I'm like, I need your services, girl.
It's so fun. And also, what people don't realize is that often my mom is secretly involved in this because
Oh,
my
no
mom's an
way.
interior designer.
Nice.
So I will sometimes ask her for advice, and she's like, okay, the rug needs to be at least a foot. Like the edge of the rug should be at least a foot from the walls.
Oh,
I didn't know this.
I did not know
I
that.
learn all of these things from my mom. So she's often involved in,
That's
designing your
amazing.
homes.
Is that kind of where this came from in some ways?
I think that I've always had a creative eye and an interest in interiors because of her.
Hmm.
But also after I started the business, I can't remember if I learned or remembered this, but I learned that my grandfather was in the textile business and my great grandfather was like really deeply entrenched in the textile business in Palestine. So I feel like it was in my
Mm,
blood.
yeah. Going back to your roots.
Going back to my roots. Yeah.
So you mentioned your grandparents are from Palestine.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your family roots and share
Yeah.
share about that?
I would love to. So my dad was born in Ramallah in 1940.
Hmm.
Um, his family is from there originally. He came to the States in 1956 during the
Oh,
Suez
wow.
War, and he was 16 at the time. He was in boarding school, a school called Friends Boys School. It was a Quaker school across from his home. And his dad came and sort of like yanked him out and said, "Get ready, you're moving to America." Because he had all sisters and one younger brother. So the idea was, let's, in case something happens to us, let's at least preserve the family name and have one boy survive.
Wow.
And so he was on a plane to Germany, I think it was that night. Um, and by the next day, he was in the States. And so yeah, he made his life here. He met my mom here. My mom's American.
Mhm.
Um, and I think briefly when they met, his parents were like, "Okay, no, you need to come home."
Oh,
And he went home to
no.
Palestine with a one-way ticket, but they were writing love letters the whole time. And he was like, "I can't."
That is so romantic.
Yeah, he came back and they eloped in Vegas.
Even more romantic.
I know.
That is such a sweet story. And
Mm,
I feel like it echoes a lot of, you know, the it echoes a lot of what makes a Palestinian a Palestinian.
yeah,
We don't have the luxury. A lot of our parents and grandparents didn't have the luxury of just growing up and, you know, working and just remaining on their homeland, unfortunately.
yeah,
And to have to make that sacrifice, leave everything he knows at such a young age
yeah,
and come here. I mean, it's amazing he met your mom and,
yeah,
obviously started a family, but
mm,
there's like a certain amount of heartbreak that all Palestinians have
yeah,
to accept.
yeah.
And, it's just inevitable in some
Yes.
ways.
Loss is just a part of our story.
Mm.
Yeah.
I had a comedian here the other day. She's a Palestinian-American comedian.
Mm.
And one thing we were talking about is the sort of like dark humor that a lot of
Yes.
us, it's just so ever present in our society and in our culture,
Mm.
that we're able to sort of find maybe the silver lining, but find like the laugh in any
Yeah.
situation because we're just so accustomed to it,
Yeah.
right? In some ways. And I mean, unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's like this, like, depressive, like, resilience.
Yeah, it is. I think it is a
Yeah.
sign of resilience. Like
Yeah.
we are able to laugh at ourselves even though it's not funny.
No.
It's not funny at
No, it's
all.
not funny.
Yeah.
And I know you have, like, an actual career
Yeah.
aside aside from Harem
Yeah.
Modern. You do have a traditional career. You
Yes.
you're a
Yeah.
psychologist, so you work with all types of patients, I'm sure, and I know I'm
Mm.
not asking for any specifics here, but as someone who really has to listen to the mindset of so many people or what's going on inside of people that isn't
Mm.
necessarily shared with the world,
Yeah.
what have you noticed as far as like the past year? Like how has, what's going on in Palestine and
Mm.
all over the world, and I think the reaction of the world to what's going on in Palestine, how is that affecting your patients and people that you've spoken to, just generally
Yeah.
speaking? And is there like an effect that maybe a lot of us are not realizing that's taking way here?
It's so interesting because um there's such a distinction between how it seems to be affecting my community, the people that I surround myself with, and a lot of my patients. And I think it's really reflective of kind of maybe a larger divide in the country because obviously I'm surrounded by people with similar values that have been kind of steeped in hopelessness um, and fear over the past year, among
Mm-hmm.
other dark and uncomfortable feelings. I would say that a lot of my patients don't even talk about it. It doesn't seem to be a part of their kind of like conscious thinking most of the time. I have a few that are deeply affected, and either they identify as Palestinian or Arab American, or they um, are just attuned. They're just attuned to what's happening,
Mm.
and they're sort of like deeply caring and empathetic people. But I have plenty of people that just have never brought it up or just think about it in terms of like, yeah, the world is crazy.
Mm.
Um, and so I think for me, that's a hard thing to see that it could not be on someone's mind. Like I know it personally affects me and I can't expect things that personally affect me to personally affect everyone, but it just seems so much bigger than me. And so, um, I would say that there are a lot of people that are able to just sort of like not think about this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it's affecting them yet, and I don't think they
Yeah.
understand how it could or will.
Do you have any, like, are there any mindset shifts that you
Mm,
apply for yourself to sort of get you through the day, to sort of get
mm,
that maybe other people could apply? Or like how do you get through that? How do you cope?
how am I
How
coping?
do you cope?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is such a hard question because sometimes I'm like, am I coping?
Mm-hmm.
And like I have all of these tools, but I'm not really okay. I think part of how I try to cope is just like by continuing to move through my life, but giving myself permission when it feels like too much. I don't know if that's the right answer. I have a lot of guilt around that. I think when I'm letting myself have happy moments, letting myself post for the business, letting myself laugh, I feel bad. I feel really guilty about this, but I also feel like without those moments of levity or without moments that just remind me of some normalcy in my life, I don't really have the energy to sustain the fight in me either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like I don't have any great answers here because it is so big and so heavy, but I feel like I am really trying to attune to myself and listen to what I need. And sometimes I feel like I need to be in community events where I know I'm going to be surrounded by my people. Sometimes I'm like, I just need to go out. I need to get dressed up, go out and have fun, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm like, I need to feel terrible and I need to be like really in that feeling. And I need to do something about that. Maybe I need to make a donation. Maybe I need to reach out and talk to other people that are feeling this way. But I'm just always kind of paying attention to like, what do I have the capacity for right now?
Yeah. I mean, that's really great advice. I mean, I know you said you don't always have the answer, but I think that's
Yeah.
great advice just to listen to where you are.
Yeah.
And if you're able to look really nice and go out and have a great dinner and have fun, do that. Take that moment.
Yeah.
And if you just need to sit in those really awful feelings, also
Yeah.
do that. And sometimes we have to feel that, you know?
Yeah. And I feel even just being like, sometimes I want to get dressed up. I feel so badly saying that.
Mm.
That feels really shallow. Um, and yet at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I know there are a lot of people that miss those moments and they can't have those moments.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know how to just like keep being a person and move through. I'm trying. I think we can all be guilty of shaming people on social media. If you're doing this, it means that. If you're
Yeah,
not posting this, it means that. And I think like it's clear where I stand, it's clear where my heart is, but I'm also trying to find a way to, I guess, take care of myself so that I can continue to show up.
of course. Of course. And that's a lot of it too. It's you can't that expression where it's like, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's
Right.
true because you are pouring so much into your community.
Yeah.
I mean, I met you at a community event,
Yeah.
right? And I know you had attended previous events, and I feel
Yeah.
like you're someone who's very active in that world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I know you as, like, even though we've just met recently, but that's kind of what I
Mm,
associate with you because I could just tell right away that's something that was important to you. And
thank you.
that's something that I really respect, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, honestly, is because I think I always felt like maybe I wasn't doing enough, and
Mhm.
and we donate and we post and we share,
Yeah.
and then it sort of feels like, well, what else can I
What
do?
else?
What
Yeah.
else can I do? And it's kind of important to remember that all of these little moments, just us
Mm,
being here today, um, is an is a form of activism in some
totally.
ways. It's a form of resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, this conversation could tick off the right people,
Yeah.
right? And that's fine. And it's just about continuing to do what we can to have our voices heard,
Yeah.
to have your voice heard as an entrepreneur, as a person who's really doing amazing things and doing cool things. And I get what you say about the community events because there's something really fulfilling about being around other cool people who view the
Mm,
world the same way as you, who are people of conscience, who are people who just get it. And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you were able to be here today and to have this conversation. And for us to learn more about your entrepreneurial journey, especially with Harem Modern, which
Yeah.
is a really cool name, by the way. I
Thank
love that
you.
name.
Thank you so much.
I'm just gonna do a few like rapid fire
Ooh, okay,
questions.
fun.
Okay. What is an Arabic song that you can't help but dance to?
Oh my gosh. Um, that's such a hard question.
I'm always like leaning towards Amr Diab, but I know
I
there
love that. It's like a good
a
throwback.
good throwback,
I
right?
feel like this is so wrong because this is not a dance song, but it's like I think one of my favorite songs that I am totally dancing in my car to it, but like in a sad way,
Oh.
is Nancy Ashram, Inta Eh.
Oh, yes.
I love that song.
It's not a dance
It's not
song,
a dance song. I'm sorry. I'm
but whenever I
playing
hear it,
wrong.
I do wanna be, like, over
I
dramatic.
want to be over dramatic.
I
Like
wanna go
I'm
sit
in
in
the
my
music
bathroom.
video, I'm in the
Yeah.
bathroom, the
Yeah,
shower, like I am hurt.
yeah. It's like, I think we grew up with, like, that image burned in our brains. Okay. What is your favorite Palestinian dish?
um I would say it's so interesting because I was thinking about what my last meal would be if I had to choose, which is a terrible
That's a terrible thought.
thing to think about. I know. And I was thinking, like, my mom's ma'lube. My mom's not Palestinian, by the way, but she was trained by all my dad's sisters the
Oh, I
minute
can
they got married.
imagine.
They were like, all
Yeah.
right, get in the kitchen.
Matlub is, yeah,
Yeah,
you can't mess with matlub.
no.
Okay, this one might require a little bit more,
Okay.
not critical
Now I'm
thinking. No.
sweating.
Okay, no, no, no. This one's fun. Okay, so I know that like the dating life here in LA is
Mm,
like shit. Like let's just be honest. I
yeah.
have a lot of friends that have told me this.
Yeah.
Um, and I saw that recently, or that coming up, we have Love is Blind Habibi
Oh my God, I'm
coming up.
so
I
excited
am so
about
excited
this.
for this show. I need to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited. We're ready. Our
we are so
community
ready.
needs
We
it.
need this. It is
Yeah.
healing. We need this. What is an aspect or maybe a couple aspects of like dating or relationships in
Mm.
our culture that you think dating life here in LA would benefit from adapting?
Oh, okay. Um, I think that I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble here, but I'm
Mm-mm.
just gonna talk.
No,
I
say
so I think
it.
that like traditionally in our culture, the it's pretty gendered. Like dating is
Hmm.
pretty gendered and men are really kind of like caretakers and they pay for things.
You have like those gender roles.
Those like
Yeah.
traditional gender roles. And I'm not saying that that's the right way. I think that feels good to me because
Hmm.
I've grown up being taught that that's, how it's supposed to go. But I've also been in relationships that go other ways that are just as lovely. But, I hear so much confusion from my American friends,
Hmm.
clients, around this stuff. And one of the things that I see so much is that, like, when women are sort of like taking on that role of caretaker and provider, that often they end up really resenting their partner and not being attracted.
That makes so much
It makes
sense.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like saying that, and I feel like I'm going to be in trouble for that because, I mean, I've literally been in relationships where I'm that person, where I'm more of the provider.
Yeah.
And there were things that were really valuable that my partner offered me.
Hmm.
But I do see it a lot in my couples work and my work with individual patients. It's like I think there's something that feels really good
Hmm.
about being taken care of. Can women take care of ourselves? Yeah. And oftentimes we do a better job of it. But
Right.
in dating, I think that could feel nice.
Yeah. And as you said, there is a lot of confusion about it. So I feel
Yes.
like just if, we could just adapt that into the society
Yeah.
to where it's like just like that rule, you know?
Yeah. Or even just some clarity. Like different societies have different ways of managing this. Like I know there are some where it's just like it is maybe it's a Dutch society, I don't know, but it's typical to go Dutch.
Okay,
So even
okay.
just clarity, like one time I think I did a poll on one of my other Instagram accounts asking people about these things,
Hmm.
and there were so many different opinions about who should pay and when. Like, should men always pay on the first date and then after that you split it? Should men always pay until it's a relationship? We're also talking about heteronormative
Yeah, of
relationships,
course.
so there's so many nuances, but just to have some like clarity about that stuff because there's so much to worry about.
There
There's
is.
so much.
Especially as a woman. Like as,
Yeah.
being the woman in the scenario, there's just so much that you're
Yeah.
already thinking about
Right.
that it's like, do I have to think about this too? Like
Right.
just take that off of her plate. Like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Take that off of
yeah,
her plate. She's already doing so much.
so much. This was so fun.
This was really
Where
fun.
can
And
people find you?
they can find me on Instagram at Harem Modern. They can find me online at haremmodern.com. Facebook, also Harem Modern. They can email me, info@haremmodern.com. And those are all really good ways to find me. I mean, you're going to track me down one way or another.
You'll find her. Lauren Had, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
So
for having
fun.
me. Really fun.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Well Rooted. If you enjoyed today's episode and felt it brought you value, please subscribe, leave a comment, give us a like, and a review. This episode of Well Rooted has been brought to you by Girard & Associates CPAs. With locations across all of Los Angeles, Girard & Associates has been helping entrepreneurs and creatives make their dreams come true for over 2 decades. Go to girardcpa.com to learn more. This is Haneen, and we are all well rooted.